Joining us now, one of the members of that bipartisan group, Democratic Senator Ben Ray Lujan of New Mexico.
Senator, so good to have you at the table. Let's start with the request that you're making of the Government Office of Accountability into the DOJ, an audit of the DOJ over their handling and release of these files. Do you believe at this point that the GAO is still operating as an independent entity?
Look, I believe the GAO is still operating as an independent entity. And I'll say this, is my Republican colleagues have been trying to get rid of the darn place. We need an independent scorekeeper to tell us what something costs, what something is, and what something is not. And sadly, right now, it's one of the few places where you can still get some facts associated with what policy is and what it's not.
You know, Pam Bondi has repeatedly defended the Department of Justice's compliance with the law that Congress passed, that the president signed. And obviously, I think we can all, anybody that, you know, can see, hear, touch, feel, or have heard, knows that that is actually not true because there was a deadline. The Department of Justice notably did not meet the deadline. So by virtue of that, they are not in compliance. What do you think you're going to find with this audit?
The question in this audit is abundantly clear. It's a very simple letter. There's 12 items on here that say you need to ask some answers and specific questions here. And what it's saying is, who did the Department of Justice appoint to do this? What did the Department of Justice tell them to do? Which political names did you tell the folks doing the work to cover up or protect them and not put them in? And why in the world, if this was done correctly, were the victim's names not redacted? There was one mistake after another here, and so this is just very simple. And the work of my colleagues here, I just want to, say thank you to Senator Merkley and Senator Durbin and Senator Murkowski. This is bipartisan with the inquiries, and if I go back home and I talk to constituents, Democrats, Republicans have voted for Donald Trump as MAGA. They want to see what's going on here. And then the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. So there's too many questions back home.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. In fact, your Attorney General for the state, Raul Torres, did an op-ed and noted, "I want to be honest about the challenges ahead. Epstein has been dead for years. Zorro Ranch has changed ownership. Physical evidence may no longer exist, and the statute of limitations has likely run out on many potential offenses. These are real obstacles, and survivors deserve to hear them stated plainly. But we will follow the evidence wherever it leads and leave no credible question unexplored. At the conclusion of our investigation, we will issue a full public report. The people of New Mexico and those who were harmed are entitled to a complete and transparent accounting of what we found and what we did not." This has now been bought and is in the process of transforming into something, I guess. What is your understanding about this ranch? Why the feds stopped the investigation regarding the ranch earlier on when Epstein was alive? What do you know about it and the sale and what's going to happen to it? And because a lot of bad things happened here. And as the Attorney General noted, it requires an investigation so people understand exactly what happened.
Well, two things are happening right now, Michael, in New Mexico. One, the Attorney General of New Mexico, Raul Torres, is moving forward with that investigation. Number two, the New Mexico State Legislature, under the leadership of State Representative Andrea Romero, working with the governor of the state, Michelle Lujan Grisham, they passed legislation to create the Truth Commission. So there's two different sets of eyes that are going to be looking at what happened in Zorro. Now, what I can say with my review of those unredacted files when I went to the Department of Justice, there's no question that there were disturbing, disgusting, illegal acts that were taking place. And even if you look at the redacted part, the victim in Florida who flew maybe to New York and then went to New Mexico, and then there's victim after victim that landed up in New Mexico. There's even photos that are in the unredacted version. It doesn't show who's in them, but it's showing what was going on in New Mexico. And quite honestly, Michael, there's no good reason. There's no good reason why the Department of Justice should have stopped investigating this. Everyone should have been looking at this. They have a private airstrip. They were using commercial space as well. People were driving in and out. I mean, it's just disgusting what was going on there. And the fact that someone decided to pull back to protect some people is what I'm guessing. There's a question that I have about who was covering up for whom and who got the benefit here. But it's just disgusting.
Well, and you also start to see how there was a patchwork happening here that made it very difficult for these survivors to actually find justice. For one thing, New Mexico simply had at the time different laws on the books that changed statute of limitations. In addition to that, the investigation doesn't open in New Mexico until 2019, after the statutes of limitations had expired for some crimes. That investigation was shut down at the urging of federal authorities in New York, who were building their own multi-state case, but left the ranch largely unexamined. I mean, you just see systematic failure after systematic failure, right? The fact that New Mexico was not able to launch their own investigation back in 2019 because of what was happening in New York, because of what had happened in Florida, it all begins to, I don't know, it begs more questions than it offers answers.
Conspiracy theory lives.
Absolutely correct. There are only more questions associated with why this thing got trampled on, if you.
Well, I am coming to you from New Mexico with a breaking update in the Epstein investigation. And that is today, New Mexico's Department of Justice has begun its on-site investigation of Zorro Ranch. This investigation is crucial as a part of our larger investigation into the crimes that happened by Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and his associates here in New Mexico, as part of New Mexico's investigation through our state Department of Justice and our newly passed bipartisan Truth Commission. Now, one of the things that's important to know is that New Mexico's Zorro Ranch is a place where multiple crimes were reported both to federal authorities as well as state and local authorities. In fact, there are records dating back to the mid-1990s of abuse happening at the ranch, including a report to the FBI in 1996 by a survivor and multiple other reports over the years. And one of the significant and important pieces of this case is to understand why justice was never pursued at the state, local, or federal level. So this investigation is a crucial piece of trying to understand what happened at the ranch, to look for potential crimes that may have occurred on the ranch property, especially because after Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019 and other properties were searched, Zorro Ranch was never properly searched, and because it is a crucial piece in getting to the bottom of truth and accountability here in our state, to hold those who are still able to be held accountable to the law, as well as seeking justice and healing for survivors here in our state. So we are so grateful for the work that the New Mexico Department of Justice is doing. We are so grateful for our state legislative leaders like State House Representative Andrea Romero and State House Representative Mariana Anaya, who are leading on our Truth Commission. And we are so grateful to all of the survivors and our community who has shown up, especially over the last several weeks, to show support for survivors. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone, all of the hundreds of New Mexicans who showed up yesterday to show their support for the survivors, to march and to stand in solidarity at Zorro Ranch yesterday. I had the opportunity to meet with survivors afterwards, and I want to share with you that what they shared with us is that they felt like New Mexico was home and had welcomed them. So thank you to all of our New Mexicans out there who are leading the way, who are leading with your hearts, and who are seeking truth, justice, and accountability, because that is what this case is all about.
After hearing about the new search, family and supporters of Epstein's victims made the journey this week to Zorro Ranch. Among them, the brother of Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, who died by suicide last year.
Standing here at Zorro Ranch, a place represents such trauma and nightmares for my sister and so many other survivors, is harder than I ever imagined.
While state officials in New Mexico have reopened their investigation, sources tell us that DOJ has not launched any new expanded investigation regarding Epstein. David?
Pierre Thomas with us here tonight. Pierre, thank you.
It isn't going away, and it's not going away because of voices big and small. Right? Like, members of Congress are on this. House members, senators, members of the state legislative branch in New Mexico, the governor. People are involved. But you also got to remember, like, the real champions, which are the people that endured what Epstein did, and also their loved ones who continued, hold the torch for them. Often together, but sometimes one of their loved ones was taken by virtue of what Epstein did, and now it's up to their families to fight for them. It's shockingly sad stuff. But now with this ranch, the investigation is really blowing wide open. And I think that it's bad for Trump because as it spreads, the more variable points that are created, the less he can contain it. The story was largely contained if you go back to about this time last year. And it wasn't until the spring and into the summer that it broke containment, that more info came out. A few Republicans started to get a little bit of character, a little bit of backbone, and said, no, we want to open the files. And then new info came out about Florida. New info came out in England. New info came out in New York. People started speaking up. There was testimony. There was evidence being provided by families, by the police, and all of that. And now there's a new venue. It should have been there from the beginning. But the more variable points, the more Donald is in trouble, the less he can control it, and the more likely some of his cronies get embroiled and they try to blame Donald Trump because he's ultimately the biggest fish.